Hey guys, welcome to another Lifestyle of Eden podcast. Today we're going to be talking about something I've been talking about quite a bit on Facebook and Instagram, social medias, is IMIDs, which is Immune Mediated Inflammatory Diseases. So when we say immune mediated, we mean your immune system is actually the thing causing or influencing this inflammatory disease. But as we're going to talk about today, it is really not the root cause, it's the response. And the response is actually taking over and causing the problem becoming chronic. When we take care of the root cause, we remove the response of the immune system. The immune system is not broken. It's not doing this on its own. It's responding in an inflammatory way to something in the body that it's counting as an invader. And that's the problem. We don't look at the root cause. We just look at, oh, your immune system's off. Yeah, this is an autoimmune disease. We can't heal it, blah, blah, blah. That's trash. It's garbage. Take care of the root cause, and the immune system will calm down and quiet down. So the reason that I initially started coming across this, I had dealt with an extreme gut health issue. I had a severe case of leaky gut, even to the point of having to be rushed to urgent care because my lungs closed up, which is also known generally as anaphylaxis. I was having such responses from the leaky gut, it was terrible. But I also had H. pylori, I had ulcers, I had SIBO, and I had zero Akkermansia mucin, and I had a hyper-driven immune system. My immune system was all the way on the highest level, causing an unreal amount of inflammation and inflammatory responses, and I was getting the results of those things, the consequences of those things in my body. And so when I healed my leaky gut through my own dieting and this, that, or the other, and then I had to deal with, the SIBO, the H. pylori, the ulcers, and so forth. But the hardest thing to deal with, honestly, was the immune system. And so I remember a man that I very highly respect, Jason Theobald, great mentor of mine when it comes to a lot of these different things. He's been in the industry for quite a while and has had some great success when it comes to the gut microbiome and functional nutrition and everything else. Started turning me over to IMIDs because I was having all of these understandings with the immune system and with the body, but I didn't put it in the context of an IMID, which is what it's known in the medical literature. So he sent me over a piece of medical literature one day, and it was like 10 pages long, and I'm just reading this whole thing, and the whole time I'm reading it, I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is confirming everything for me. Everything that I have been, believing and studying and finding in my own clients and with my own self and our blood works and this, that, or the other. I just didn't put it in simply the medical terms. But reading it in medical terms, I go, this is everything that I've been seeing and everything that I've been doing and believing and practicing and everything else. And so an immune-mediated inflammatory disease, when we're talking about this, we can be talking about type 2 diabetes, because type 2 diabetes is inflammatory induced. We could be talking about Crohn's disease, which is a type of IBD. Which IBD is inflammatory bowel disease. We could be talking about IBS. We could be talking about celiac disease. We could be talking about all of these autoimmune disorders. Essentially, when they talk about an autoimmune disorder, people will tell you, they say, yeah, my immune system is fighting against my own body. And so we're looking and targeting the immune system. But the immune system is not the issue. The immune system has targeted something in your body that it's calling an invader, and it's lived there long enough that it's now started to shoot out inflammation to try and protect your body. But because it's done it for so long, now it's becoming chronic inflammation, and it's starting to just attack your entire body. And so now you're getting terrible, and I mean terrible responses, like insulin resistance, which is probably the number one cause of this. So therefore, type 2 diabetes comes about, extreme weight gain comes about, anxiety and depression come about, an exacerbated bipolar disorder, exacerbated ASD or autism spectrum disorder, all of these different things, insomnia. But like I said, this is where Crohn's disease, IBD, IBS, celiac disease, all of these different things in the autoimmune disorders, the same exact things. So whenever it comes to an IMID, which many people, by the way, are actually suffering from an IMID, they just have no idea. It's not until I start to ask them questions and say, hey, are you suffering from this? And they go, all of those. And I go, yeah, we're dealing with this. And I go, how long have you had it? And they go, this long, and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, we're getting to the point where we're going, yeah, you're having now an immune response that's mediating inflammation in your body in a very negative way that we don't want. The body is very good at inflaming itself for good purposes. For example, when you work out, the body becomes inflamed. When you eat something bad or become sick, the body can become inflamed, but it's doing it as a protective mechanism. It's like when we eat omega-3s and omega-6s. Both are very good. Omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. Omega-6s are inflammatory. We want to have a balance of inflammatory foods, healthy foods, in our diet. We want our immune system to be able to inflame at certain times, but not chronically, and especially not from things in the gut microbiome and with food. When that happens, we start to have very severe issues. And so a lot of this stems generally from a gut microbiome issue. It can come from something else, but for the most part, it's stemming from a gut microbiome issue that you don't even know about. Whether it's leaky gut, celiac, all these different things, food intolerances, food allergies. A lot of times you're not actually intolerant or allergic to any of these foods. You have a leaky gut, it's slipping into your bloodstream, it's creating an inflammatory allergic response or an intolerant response, and the immune system is freaking out. So yes, eventually we're going to have to temper down the immune system, which we can do with certain protocols, vitamin supplementation, amino acid protocols, as well as certain medications that we can do to really temper it down very quickly. But that's not the goal of the entire scenario, because the thing is, the moment that I take you off of those things, guess what? The immune system's going to shoot back up again because it's still detecting a problem within your body. So you have to figure out what this problem is, and most people can't figure this out. Most doctors can't figure it out. They're telling people, hey, no, this is an autoimmune disorder, it can't be healed, blah, 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 because they don't know anything about nutrition. My dog knows more about nutrition than they do, and because of this, they just want to put you on medications. Okay, so you've got to understand, an immune-mediated inflammatory disease is stemming from a cause that was generally induced by something within the gut microbiome, with your diet. It could be with a stress that you're going through a trauma in your life, whether it's a divorce, the loss of a child, financial situations, whatever it is. So there's multiple reasons, but nevertheless, the immune system will start to rise up and fight against you, especially when it becomes chronic. So when we're dealing with an IMID, every case is different. So what I'm going to say today is not one shoe fits all. It is something that we look at. It's something that we take into consideration, but it's not the one shoe fits all and this thing is the answer for all IMIDs. It's not the scenario. Depending on the situation, especially when it comes to a gut microbiome issue, whatever it may be, and even whenever it's stemming from stress, that's still going to alter the gut bacteria and eventually become a gut microbiome issue. So it still comes back to that, right? So when we're dealing with this, generally, especially if you study in the medical literatures, when it comes to an IMID, the very first thing that we talk about, in fact, on this medical literature I read for 10 pages, the whole 10 pages was on one concept: diets. What diet do we use for an IMID? Because all of these things are stemming from the gut microbiome. How do we temper the inflammatory responses? How do we calm down the immune system? How do we remove the issue or allergies or intolerances of whatever is taking place? All of these come through different dieting tactics. Now, the one thing that we really talk about, which is kind of an obvious thing when you understand these different things, is simply an anti-inflammatory diet. So what is the most anti-inflammatory diet probably that is the most common in the world? It is generally known as the Mediterranean diet in the East, right? And so when we talk about the Mediterranean diet, we're talking about wild-caught fish, not farm-raised. We're talking about fruits. We're talking about vegetables. We're talking about healthy omega-3 oils, such as like extra virgin olive oil, macadamia oil, coconut oil, all these different things. We're also talking about more things like white rice rather than brown rice, or cream of rice rather than oatmeal. Things that digest a little bit easier, especially when it comes to a compromised gut microbiome. Oatmeal and sweet potato and these different things are wonderful, but when you have a compromised gut microbiome, these fibrous foods can be very, very tough on digestion. It's the reason why when you have a gut issue or an IMID, we don't even put you on cruciferous vegetables, which are phenomenal for you. We don't put you on broccoli or any of those things. I generally put my clients only on green beans because it's very digestible. You're still getting a little bit of fiber, but you're not having a severe gut issue trying to digest those different things. So we need to put you generally on a very well designed, notice how I said that, a very, not just a Mediterranean diet. I don't use that as the name. In fact, I did another podcast called the Flush Diet. That's what I like to call it, is the Flush Diet. Not a Mediterranean diet, because Mediterranean diet means that you can eat all this pita bread, you can just throw oils all over your food, all these different things, and that's not what we're doing. Especially like olives, you can eat avocados and all these different things. Well, we also have to go low FODMAP. So it's not just about these fruits and vegetables and this, that, and the other. It's a well-designed protocol for the individual that's not going to give them issues on any grounds. And so we have to focus on giving an anti-inflammatory diet, which is generally this flush diet, and it's going to lower inflammation so much in the body. It's going to temper the immune system so much in the body. It's not going to completely take care of the immune system, because we still have to figure out what we're dealing with. Are we dealing with H. pylori? Are we dealing with ulcers? Are we dealing with SIBO? Are we dealing with no Akkermansia mucin which is a major probiotic in the large intestine? What are we actually dealing with? So when we figure out what we're dealing with, then we can start to attack this more. But nevertheless, you have to start with an anti-inflammatory diet. You also have to start with anti-inflammatory lifestyle protocols. So you've got to really remove things like working out intensely, stressful cardios, or any cardios at all. We also like to add in some type of meditative practice. If you're a believer, if you're a Christian, we really like to add in more time, reading scripture, praying, and all these different things. Or whether you're a Christian or not, sometimes we'll do certain breathing techniques for yoga. I'm not big into all the other yoga stuff, but when it comes simply and only to the breathing techniques for about 30 minutes, full breaths in through the belly, full breaths out, all these different things, it's very peaceful, it's very meditative, and it greatly relaxes the mind and removes inflammation in the body. So we need an inflammatory lifestyle, okay? And so this is the reason why, basically medical literatures will tell you stay away from the Western diet, which is basically filled with meat and all these different things. Now here's the problem that I've found when it comes to the medical literatures, because I'm a huge fan of the flush diet, and honestly staying on that for long periods of time and just increasing the food, because I talked about in another podcast, you can increase the food so heavily on a flush diet, 3,000 calories, 4,000 calories, and you're not going to gain weight, especially if you're working out, because it's so high omega-3, the body is able to digest it so well and lose and flush out all water and toxins. The body is responding so perfectly to this. So I love to actually utilize it. I love fish. I love white rice. I love putting coconut oil on there. I love fruits like pineapples and berries and these different things. So it just works for me in general whenever I want to do it. But I also love steak, okay? I do love grilled chicken and all these different things. And whenever we look in the medical literatures, generally medical literature will bash the Western diet, which is high in these things, because steak is great for you, especially like a lean steak, like a top sirloin, filet mignon, 96.4 beef, all these different things, grass-fed and so forth. But nevertheless, they're still more inflammatory than, say, mahi-mahi. They're not overly inflammatory, but they're more inflammatory. They're not as anti-inflammatory. Basically, the way we can talk about it is, salmon, for example, if we were to choose between salmon and like top sirloin, right? Because they're fattier meats or fish, right? So salmon would be like a Bugatti, and a steak would be like a Corvette, right? So it still works well, and it's better than you going out and getting a Big Mac from McDonald's, but it's not really what we're chasing after. The problem with a lot of the medical literatures is when they compare the Western diet and they start saying the meat and the steaks and the chickens, I have not personally, I'm not saying they're not out there, but personally, I have not seen any studies that have been done in a controlled setting. Meaning, when we look at the Western diet, we're generally including the SAD diet, which is the standard American diet, which is not only including meat, it's including all the candy, all the crap, all the fast food stuff. So when they take somebody, oh, you eat this meat, well, generally, they eat all this other stuff too. And so, of course, they're going to have these issues in comparison, but it's not really a fair comparison. But even if you did eat super clean, like say you ate like me, where even if, eating the chicken and beef, you're still eating super clean, you're not eating fast food, you're eating fruits and vegetables, this, that, and the other, it's still not going to be as important when it comes to an IMID as the flush diet or high omega-3 anti-inflammatory Mediterranean diet, which we really need to go on. I actually am wanting to do a study on myself here in 2024, where I'm going to be doing a couple different studies, God willing, all practicing on myself. That's generally how I always do things. My vitamin supplementation, amino acid protocols, I practiced on myself. I studied medical literatures. I would do them to myself. I would dose them out myself. I would get my blood work done every 2 months, test things, see how things are working. And that's kind of how I've come across all these different things. And then I've just backed it up with scientific and medical literature under professionals as well, and get phenomenal results from it. But that's what I want to do with nutrition. And this concept of, like I said, I have not seen any controlled studies where we take somebody in the Western world eating the meat and this, that, or the other, but sticking to fruits and vegetables, white rice, cream of rice, oatmeal, not eating ice cream and fast food and all of these different things, and still being able to show inflammatory markers at a moderate level and so forth. So this is something that I do want to do. I haven't found it out there yet. I think it would be fun to do. I love experimenting with this anyway. But when it comes to the IMID, the first thing, like I said, we have to do is, number one, everybody looks to the immune system, like an autoimmune disease, and that's phenomenal. That's fine. Yes, the immune system is going crazy right now. But even if you take, like, say, rapamycin, which is going to drastically lower your immune system for the sake of lowering inflammation, that's fine. But the moment you get off the rapamycin, your body is going to go right back in inflammatory mode. Why? Because the immune system is still detecting an issue within the body. So if you have celiac disease, if you have an autoimmune disorder, if you have type 2 diabetes, if you've got all these different... I've seen people get off their insulin, I've seen people get off metformin, I've seen people get off all of these different things with clients, because we're simply removing the things that are causing insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is inflammatory induced. Type 2 diabetes is inflammatory induced. And so all these other symptoms, even mental health disorders, we're seeing incredible studies. We're seeing incredible studies with even people with bipolar disorder. And their markers and their symptoms are coming down so drastically simply by including 3,000 milligrams of omega-3 fish oils into their regimen. Which shows you what? If they're responding off of fish oils, what does fish oils do? What do we use them for? We're using them for anti-inflammatory properties. So if you are responding that well with bipolar disorder off of omega-3 fish oils, off of an anti-inflammatory property, what that is showing us is that bipolar disorder is either inflammatory induced or inflammatory exacerbated. Either one, it doesn't matter. Regardless, the anti-inflammatory lifestyle greatly cures it, or greatly enhances the ability to function with it in a way that it doesn't take you over and have these episodes and this, that, or the other. But I say this with a lot of things. The same thing is with ASD, with autism spectrum disorder. So when we're dealing with the IMIDs, the number one goal that I have when I have these clients is, let's attack the root. Let's figure out what's going on. I just signed up a new client, and she has a very bad leaky gut, and she's having terrible issues. She's had these for years. She's gaining weight. And she can't sleep, she's having anxiety, she's having all these different things, and it's become chronic. And so now eventually you start stepping potentially into an IMID if you don't get on top of this. So you have to fix this. Once you fix this, the immune system will calm down, the inflammation will stop being sent out by the immune system. Water weight and water retention and swelling will come down. The body will start to lose weight. Meanwhile, before this, the body is going to be weight loss resistant, keep in mind. And the cells will start to open up, and you'll start to become healthier. You'll start to be able to sleep way better. You'll start to be able to have less anxiety, less depression. Your gut microbiome is going to be healed. All these different things. So, yes, the Eastern diet and the Mediterranean, like I said, a well-designed program of the Mediterranean diet is phenomenal. It's the number one choice when it comes to these different things. And then we can go deeper, if you're dealing with SIBO or Candida, then we've got to start manipulating certain carbohydrates and this, that, or the other. But like I said, this is an overview because every scenario is different. We have to deal with every scenario individually. There's not a cookie cutter one thing fits all. So, but nevertheless, the IMID thing is something that I think is very misunderstood. I think it's misunderstood in the medical world. I think people that suffer from it are greatly deceived by medical professionals by saying, hey, you have to live with this. This is incurable. But it's just because they don't know either number one, they don't know the root of it. Number two, they don't know how to find the root of it. Or number three, they don't care to find the root of it, because the moment you find the root of it, the moment you get off their medication, you stop putting money in their pockets. People don't want to talk about this, but the medical field is just hungry for everything that you have. That's all it is. We're set up to fail. And I'm going to have another podcast where we end up talking about these different things with the American Food Society, and how we're set up to fail with that. But nevertheless, I wanted to shed some light on the IMIDs, how I came across it initially from issues with my own gut microbiome. It started leading me down a rabbit trail of, the foods that I needed to be eating. I started doing this. I started healing different properties within my gut microbiome. I started seeing it with so many clients. Then I started coming across the medical literature, which basically put the nail, right in there to know everything that what I was seeing was true and on the right track for. So if you're struggling with any of these things, I want you to be encouraged and not have a loss of hope, because sometimes you can. And if you're struggling with it, please email us at lifestyleofeden@gmail.com. Stay tuned for the next episode. I hope that this was a blessing to you.